Welcome to episode 3 of Have You Lost the Plot? I know certainly I have in many different ways, and I guess I quantify that by things about when people watch me surf. I should think that's a question I ask a lot. So, episode 3, here we are with the episode I've called The Trap. And I've called it The Trap based on the model, the Mia model, and the stories that can get located and restricted to one section of that, which can seem a little bit hopeless, and there's very good reasons for that. So, so far we've talked about stories that look forward in particular ways, interesting ways, unique ways, and wonderful ways. And today we're going to talk about these stories which are less hopeful. Maybe movement feels impossible. Maybe that suffering becomes too overwhelming, that it consumes everything else. And certainly when I think about the the work I've done on looking forward, suffering is something that can almost prevent hope because it stops you being able to think of anything else other than relief from the suffering. So that becomes the most important thing that needs to shift. So those are moments of pain, trauma, illness, and loss that can leave us feeling stuck with where we are. I remember listening again to people with trauma in some of the work we've done. And as they spoke, they just described things that had changed, and they focused on these elements that we all need in life, these activities that are meaningful, that can no longer be done, or relationships that were different. Maybe because they're dependent now on someone else, and that's a big, really important change. And I guess part of what they recognize is some minor activities or something they no longer enjoy. Perhaps the joy has been taken out of it. Um, and so when you ask them what needs to happen, it, often it's just that suffering to end, the suffering to end. So that's a really important thing. It's a very powerful thing, and it's something that we've got to consider. Because when it's intense enough, it sort of it slashes away at the hopes. It overrides wishes, or any other goal or dream. So before you can get to adventures or resumption, relief, some sort of relief from suffering is often the first port of call. So when I think about those stories, within the research I did, and it might have been that there's particular people that volunteered, but those were moments. The suffering was in moments. Thankfully, it didn't dominate the whole story, the whole time points. Uh, but the interesting things to note about in terms of this idea of a crossroads and that first image is that the past is filled with losses, the present might be filled with pain and difficulties and struggle, and the future almost becomes impossible to imagine. So people might say, I don't know, I can't see what's ahead, I can't see beyond today. And that's why we refer to this episode as a trap. The future begins to disappear. Uh, and perhaps not because people have given up, but saffron has narrowed down that horizon for them. Interestingly, the mirror I think is very interesting here because this is where emotions are so important. Emotions are one of those things that can change quite a lot. So through expression, being able to tell your own story is really important for changing that. So on the map, remember we've got energy, we've got how we feel about something, we've got the ability to accept or not, and the ability to look forward or not. So we've got these different um, aspects which can change. And I think it's looking at any one of those to change that's really important. So the experience of suffering is obviously emotional. You need to attend to emotions, to attend what might be significant and located within the stories for that, and explain and understand a bit more about that. And that's one way to get relief. It's psychological. It's embodied. Um, and when people become trapped, one of these dimensions of hope, adaptation, feelings, or energy might be completely stuck. It might be that feeling positive at all about things is impossible. And the uncertainty of what life's going to be like ahead makes hope difficult. And so what you can see is these particular things can end up leading someone into what a very narrow expression of what it is to have the experience. And so, sometimes the difficulty is moving and the difficulty is moving out of that. So when hope feels impossible, connection may still be possible. When acceptance feels impossible, activity may be still possible, and energy is low, meaningful conversation might be still possible. So I think one of the things, or one of the reasons I quite like the mirror is because I wonder within these narratives, these regressive narratives, these narratives of suffering, whether one of those aspects can be worked with, one of those domains or areas in terms of looking forward to how others might be able to look forward, or adapt to way others might adapt, or to be able to express feelings, um, or to be able to have a conversation. Um, Isolation is a big thing. We want to stop during those moments and the difficulty that comes with them. So with the mirror map, it's the idea that is there something within that, within those different domains of it that can be moved. One of the most important things I think is that another story can open a door. So hearing another story and being described by someone who's faced something similar, but looked at it a different way, experienced it a different way, tackled it a different way, can be one way out of a trap by someone taking on something they've heard or seen, realizing other routes exist. Someone who's maybe found a way to reconnect or resume some meaningful activities that suffered in a similar way. So looking for possibilities in different ways is really important and might provide a new route on the map and a different place as we think about that locating ourselves on a time point, being able to look forward and at the crossroads. So one thing to watch for is where stories are dominated by loss, uncertainty, fear, or sadness. That could be, not necessarily, could be a place people get trapped in, and there are ways out of that trap. The in closing, I think being able to express where we are is really important. Being trapped in a situation is not the end. It's not the finish. Other people would have been there and might have responded differently, and that's always interesting to look at. And relief can come from being able to talk to other people. So sometimes how we think about our ways out, it might be different. We can come back to the elements of the mirror, four elements of the mirror. We can come back to what gives meaning to activity and how other people have managed to access that. Um, and also we can give time for that expression of suffering. So let's look back at this mini series on Have You Lost the Plot? We've looked at the stories and their location in terms of their time, where they focused on. They focused on what's lost, what's broken, what's finished, or they focused on looking forward and possibilities. Uh, what what's important there is there a trap there or not, or is there new ways that are emerging to look forward? And I think that's really important. The the understanding that suffering can dominate things from this episode is really important, and it's natural, but there is ways forward. And also there's unique stories, as we had in the first episode, and there's stories that can change and shift. So as we think about what do we take from this mini series on Have You Lost a Plot? I'd say there's two things: thinking about our own stories and how we locate them in time, and then thinking about those four elements we use in the Mia map of energy, how we feel about things, the ability to adapt, and the ability to look forward. So what within the story is being pointed to from that. And I think you can reflect on that and think about it yourself, and hopefully it's given you some ideas to move forward with. And it also hopefully connects you a little bit to some of the research we've done over time. Thank you for listening.